Welcome back to Leeds Lately. Before we get into this one, if you could just hit that big red button down below. Today we're going to be talking about one of the first signings that we've been linked with since the January window ended, and we're looking now towards the summer and potentially Premier League signings that we could make. The first one we're going to be talking about then is Koni De Winter. Now, Koni De Winter plays currently for Genoa in Serie A in Italy. It looks like they're going to be surviving this season and not getting relegated. But having now made his debut for Belgium national team and making a very good case for himself during his performances for Genoa, Koni De Winter is somebody who Leeds would potentially look at as not necessarily a replacement for Joe Rodon, but certainly somebody who could help him out in that role there at right centre-back. So he's a big, tall player, good aerial presence, very good strength, kind of positionally with his body as well, not just positionally on the pitch, but the way he uses his body to shake people off him is also very good. We're going to have a look at some of his statistics, a bit of the eye test as well. Let's first have a little look at his career. Started off in the Belgian league, and then this was kind of as his youth career. Then he went to Juventus under 17s. He kind of went through the academy at Juventus from that point on until he made a loan transfer to Empoli and kind of made a little bit of his start to his career there. He's still only 22 years old, and then eventually Juventus sold him to Genoa for around 8 million euros, which is not a massive amount for the 22-year-old who has bags of potential. Juventus obviously saw diminishing returns on him given the kind of squad players that they have, but he's certainly somebody who will be on the radar for a lot of clubs in Europe this summer. Market value of around 12 million euros, but Leeds probably would be expecting to pay in the region of 15 million pounds for him, which I'm going to say isn't a massive amount of money given that you're going up to the Premier League. I would say that, I mean, there's ways to go about it, isn't it? You do the Forest thing and spend a ridiculous amount of money when you go up, or you try to buy smartly, you try to buy intelligently, and if you do get it right for the right amount of money, you can make more additions to your squad at a more reasonable price that pay off and potentially make profit for you in the future. So Koni De Winter, someone then that Leeds are rumoured to have an interest in. So what we do on this channel, and you know this already if you've been here for a while, but if you're new here, what we do is we don't necessarily go into the likelihood that the rumor is going to be true. We just talk about the player and give Leeds fans a bit of an idea about who these guys are when you're talking about them. So Koni De Winter then, we do have some statistics for him as well, and we're going to have a little bit of a comparison to Joe Rodon here. Now, Koni De Winter scored 3 goals this season as a centre-back, which is very good, and it highlights his aerial threat. So what we were going to do is have a little bit of a look at him against the likes of Joe Rodon. Now, we will just quickly skim over this penalty thing, this non-penalty goals thing, because 0.13 per 90 puts him in the 95th percentile, so the top 5% of all defenders in similar leagues. That's actually men's Big Five leagues and the Champions League and the Europa League over the last 365 days. So it's comparing against a good amount of players, and for centre-backs, he's in the 95th percentile, so the top 5% of non-penalty goals. So he's very good at winning headers from corners. We've had some right struggle. I mean, if you're in my streams, we actually counted up to 130. I think we got to 130 corners since we directly scored from one. And even then, the Tanaka one against Sheffield United, we were counting as a direct one. But what you want is somebody meeting the ball in the box, and Koni De Winter is the type of player who actually goes ahead and wins those balls into the box and often gets him in the right direction. Now, the kind of discrepancy that we get between somebody like Koni De Winter and Joe Rodon is the fact that Koni De Winter is playing for a team who are going to have less of the ball in the Italian league, in the Italian first division, and are going to be somebody who is kind of fighting to survive. And Joe Rodon is playing for a team at the top of the championship who are dominating every single game. So therefore you do get a discrepancy in things like the passes, which I can see here, but I'll read out to you now. So in terms of this, then passes attempted. Joe Rodon attempts 81.01, so that puts him in the top 2% of players attempting passes. Koni De Winter, 52.77, which puts him in the 38th percentile. So you can see there's a huge discrepancy in the amount of passes attempted. The pass completion rate as well from Joe Rodon is 92% as opposed to Koni De Winter's 87.5%. Progressive passes. Now this is something that is fairly interesting here because Joe Rodon has a lot of progressive passes. A lot of the time he's expected to pass that ball forward into the midfield, and therefore he has 5.92 progressive passes per 90, and Koni De Winter has 3.64. But Koni De Winter having 3.64 puts him in the 58th percentile, which for a team who are going to be defensive a lot of the time and are going to struggle to have a lot of possession at the back with teams trying to break them down, I do think that that's fairly impressive for the position that he's in, and it shows potential that he's capable of making those forward passes. He's actually pretty good at successful take-ons as well. He's up there with 0.26 successful take-ons per 90, which puts him in the 67th percentile. Joe Rodon doesn't do that too often, so he's down at 0.09 successful take-ons, which is really low. But again, he's a centre-back. Another interesting one is Koni De Winter, who he has played at right back in a number of games and has actually also been asked to play in holding midfield as well. So as well as that giving you a kind of idea that he's pretty good with the ball, he's able to hold on to it in certain situations and be pretty much a calm, cool, collected head on the ball. It also means that he is receiving passes high up the pitch, and it's going to skew the stats slightly. So progressive passes received, so that means completed passes that move the ball towards the opponent's goal line at least 10 yards from its furthest point in the last 6 passes. So essentially, balls that go 10 yards forward. He's receiving those, which means he's the one higher up the pitch. So it does show that sometimes he does have license to actually go forward as well as a centre-back, which is not something we see too often in Daniel Farke's system, but it does prove that he's kind of got that versatility. If we needed him to go out and play right back, then he would probably be able to do that as well. Now, when we look at the tackles, we're looking at 1.77 tackles per 90, puts it Koni De Winter in the 72nd percentile, whereas Joe Rodon's down at 0.96 tackles per 90, which puts him in the 18th percentile. Now, the reason it's important to point out things like that is that Joe Rodon, again, is playing in a team where it's not that often that we even get attacked, but Koni De Winter isn't playing in a team where he is going to be attacked a fair amount of the time. The main one that I want to mention is aerials 1. Now, aerials 1 for Koni De Winter is 2.77 per 90, which puts him in the 80th percentile. And that's 80th percentile compared to men's Big 5 leagues, whereas Rodon is 2.5 aerials 1 per 90, which puts him in the 60th percentile. That's compared to men's next 14 competitions, so i.e. a lot of second divisions and other divisions that are compared, so it'll be like the Belgian League and places like that, basically. Joe Rodon, who you would classify as a Leeds fan, I think, as someone who wins aerials fairly regularly when crosses come into the box. He's there to clear them away. He wins them fairly regularly. Koni De Winter wins them quite a bit more than he does. And like I said, that's good in 2 aspects. One, defensively, trying to block out oppositions from set pieces is a good thing to have, and especially when you go up to the Premier League, you don't want to be giving away sloppy set piece goals. So Koni De Winter is somebody who potentially could help out with that defensively. And like I said as well, scoring goals as well from attacking corners. He's also somebody that'll be able to go meet the ball. In terms of if you want to kind of get a similar player profile then to what Koni De Winter has been compared to. So based on the statistics, he's similar compared to players like Tosin Adarabioyo, who plays for Chelsea, and Jarrell Kwanzaa, who plays for Liverpool. Both very good ball-playing centre-backs who are kind of on the, well, Jarrell Kwanzaa more than Adarabioyo, probably more on the kind of like potential future star kind of trajectory. So that kind of gives you an idea of the type of player that he is. When we have a look at the eye test of what he actually plays like, there's a lot of winning headers, like I said. There's a lot of his ability to use his body where he can muscle people off the ball, which you do see from Joe Rodon fairly often as well. It's something that as a young centre-back, you kind of need to have that in the locker, because if you don't, you're going to get exposed as being too weak and too inexperienced perhaps for the league. I think perhaps we've seen that before with some of our centre-backs, but with Koni De Winter, it doesn't seem like it's a thing that he will really face. He's got a decent amount of experience in the top flight in Italy, which we know has always traditionally been quite a defensive league, focused on defenders being a lot of the stars in that league. Thinking of Giorgio Chiellini, Leonardo Bonucci, those kind of players of recent years, where you've gone, okay, they're the big guys, they're the big dogs in that league. Koni De Winter then thriving in a league like that, showing that he's got some decent statistics in there, as well as looking good on the eye test as well. I wouldn't say that he's, given said all that, I wouldn't say that he's the perfect player for us. I would say that there are definitely better players out there. It could be a smart move. It could be one of those where you go, do you know what? That was a really good bit of business, getting him for 10 to 15 million pounds. There might be interest from clubs who might be in European competitions, and we might not actually get anywhere near him. But there is a potential there that Leeds could do this deal and get a very good player. There's also a potential that you spend 15 million pounds and you're banking on success for a player coming to a new league that he's never played in before at a young age, and being somebody who is able to adapt quickly. You kind of are putting your eggs in one basket with that. I think there's probably better options out there for me. I don't think he's the worst player in the world. I think he's very good and he's got very good potential. I think it's the type of signing where a club maybe who could afford to take that risk would take it. Whereas if you're just getting promoted to the Premier League, perhaps we need to go about it a little bit differently this time round. Last time round, like I said, you're signing people like Diego Llorente and Robin Koch and players like that who you kind of almost expected to be a decent solid player, and you're only spending about 10 to 15 million pounds on them, and it didn't really work out too well for either of them. So I wonder if there's a potential that if Leeds are going to go up and sign a centre-back, it has to be a little bit more high profile to maybe succeed in the Premier League. That's kind of the takeaway I'll go with this. But each and every time we see a new rumour, we're going to do a video about it, and you'll get an idea of how that player would fit into Leeds' system and what they would kind of look like. So, look, that's Koni De Winter. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Thanks for watching Leeds Lately, and I'll see you in the next one.